Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to 5-ish minute reviews here. The first one I got up on my table today is a new one from SixLeaf, and it's not the one from Jelly Jerry, so your guess is as good as mine. This one is definitely a rattlesnake design, and one that is fairly similar to another one that he's done from several companies. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. We got the thumb studs on both sides. They are titanium, and in these cases, bead blasted and anodized purple, which looks alright. Then we open that up, and we have a very, very normal looking drop point. That's the word I'm looking for here. Yep, we got a little tiny bit of a swedge on the top for it. Very, very high flat grind, but not quite a full flat grind. It is in D2 blade steel. We have quite the large pocket clip for it, or at least wide pocket clip for it. And we got a decent action going on for it after kind of tuning it up a little bit. However, it does seem as though a little bit of that is probably because my detent is a little on the loose side here, so yeah, that's still quite a decent action on it. So yeah, my pivot was just a little bit out of whack with it, but still. Okay, so we have very, very squared off with the handles. Nice full-size back spacer going on there. So even if the blade did creep up too close to the top, it's all nice and hidden away from fingers and other flesh and stuff like that. Saying it's technically a front flipper with that jimping there. Doesn't creep up to the top, but it's not my favorite. It's because of how far out and a right angle it is from the handle and stuff like that. It's easily doable, but maybe not my favorite front flipper ever. However, what I did allude to earlier is that SixLeaf has also, in the past, put out this guy here. This is using some polished canvas micarta, steel liners and all that sort of stuff. Very, very similar. Not quite as tall as the blade, and the handles are a little bit thicker, but for all intents and purposes, it's the blade's going to cut exactly the same. This one in particular is in D2. However, Miguron also did a couple of variants of essentially the same exact knife. They did one with a polished micarta, but in their case they used 154 cm. I don't have that, but what I do have is the higher end one that they did, which was a titanium frame lock of the same thickness and stuff like that. I've pulled the thumb studs off. They were kind of triangular or something like that. I just wasn't really jiving with them, so I just took them off. But yeah, this is using M390 blade steel. I think if they do a remake of this knife, it'll be in 20 CV like a lot of the rest of them. This one's the MK09. And this one is a little bit interesting in the fact that it does actually have a deep carry titanium milled pocket clip, which is not something you see very often. But both of these guys and the middle Miguron knives version of this guy here are essentially going to be about the same here, but this one's a little bit thinner. And this one's a bit taller. For the most part, and I guess the back spacer doesn't go nearly as far as it does on here. For the most part, I do really appreciate either of these knives over this one here. They have much more contouring going on to them, whereas this one does start to feel like you're holding on to kind of a sharp block of titanium, which you kind of are. Still, if you're only going to pick one, you can't go wrong with this one, especially if you get it for a better price than you can on any of the other ones. But if you do have choice, and for the most part you do have that choice, I would still probably go with either of these, either the MK09, either fancy or that middle one, or the SL11, which is basically the same kind of thing there. You got much better lock bar access with these guys, a better front flipping experience, and thumb studs that still end up working out quite nice and good. And we have jumping a little bit further back. Oh no, we still have that over here too. Same kind of plunge grind and everything going on there. So yeah, it's not bad. But you know, I still think that these guys are probably just a little tiny bit better. With all that being said, I actually won an eBay auction for this guy for about $46 or something like that. You know, plus tax and all that sort of stuff, which I don't think is that bad of a price for the knife at all. But you know, seeing it at retail from a lot of places, Amazon and when they were in stock at White Mountain Knives, it was close to 100. I don't think it's worth anywhere near that. You can probably do a heck of a lot better for a $100 knife than this guy in particular, but still pretty darn good. Let's go ahead and go through some specs on this guy, and we can move on. So 3.12 inch blade, 79.3 millimeters, 3.2 millimeter blade stock thickness, so a little bit thin. That's good, like that. 4.12 ounces for it, or 116.5 grams. Pretty good for a titanium frame lock here. We do have weight relieving done on the inside, but basically only on the show side. They didn't really do any of that on the lock bar side. I don't think it really needed it, but so no harm nor foul there. And the handle thickness here is 0.46, so a bit thinner than a Spyderco PM2, or 11.6 millimeters. So yeah, there we go. There's that guy here. Next up, we got the TwoSun TS412. I have recently done a full review on this guy on my TwoSun Tuesday stuff, but in case someone's not super interested in that, this is a new one from Jelly Jerry. This is an enormous knife. Mine had slash has a little bit of how do I want to phrase that? Fit and finish kind of an issue or something like that. But overall, still a great knife. If you like something absolutely enormous. It's got kind of a 3-groove sort of thing going on here. Not something that's uncommon with Jelly Jerry's. Like here's the Monarch that also has those 3 grooves in there. This, of course, is fancier blade steel. A lot of people think that this is a pretty big knife, but not in comparison to this guy over here. So, yeah, what do we get? We get a D2 blade that is like 3.8 inches long. So, you know, encroaching in cold steel kind of size territory. In fact, it almost kind of reminds me a bit of maybe a Formax Scout kind of blade shape and stuff like that. Unless I'm completely remembering it wrong. But I think that's the knife I'm thinking of. Yeah, 96.6 millimeters for the blade length on that. 3.9 millimeter blade stock thickness. It looks a little bit thinner because we do have a bit of a swedge up top there that makes it look a little bit thinner. But yeah, this is still a beefy blade, but incredibly tall. So the blade geometry down near the bottom, just like that Monarch, is really, really slicey. So if you like a tall blade, this thing, fantastic. However, it is 6.12 ounces, or 173.5 grams. It's quite heavy. There's a lot of titanium going on in here. And the handle thickness on it is 0.60 of an inch, or 15.3 millimeters. But yeah, we do have a sub. Well, I don't know. It's interesting. I'll call it a sub frame lock or a sub bolster lock or something like that. We can see it does thin out, but these are still a bit thicker than I would consider to be liners or something like that. But yeah, we got pretty darn good action going on with it overall. And also do a reverse flick. We can see right here that we have a blade pen that's through the blade itself rather than being pinned between the two pieces of titanium. In mine in particular, this one's actually not quite secured, which was one of the fit and finish issues, but I've only really run into that kind of thing on like one other failed QSP knife, so it's not very normal in the knife industry. We do have paper micarta up here, dyed red, and then their kind of high thread count micarta down here, which is pretty good. I wish the pocket clip actually had more than one attachment point, but at least this micarta is a bit stronger than some of the others that they've been using, and it is kind of a large irregular shape, so I haven't really had much in the way of having that mess up. However, that being said, the screw going through this piece of steel, or piece of titanium, the liner here, slash frame, whatever the hell, is actually seized in there. It screws into the pocket clip on the inside, and the pocket clip finally does come off, but that screw is basically seized into this piece of titanium. Makes it a little bit difficult for disassembly. That's just one of the other things there. And also it's got that call-out pivot collar that some people don't like. But, I mean, overall, if you like an absolutely enormous but very, very comfortable and highly capable slicing knife, this thing's fantastic. I do kind of wish that the detent was gotten over a bit faster. It's basically right in the middle as it hits your thumbnail there. Generally, I would like to see it engage with that bearing a little bit earlier than here, just to make that much easier for closing it. But, you know, if it's a knife that you end up carrying primarily, then you end up getting used to that sort of stuff. But, yeah, pretty good knife. Alright, next up is another TwoSun, and this one is hilarious. I haven't done a review on this yet, but I'd plan to very, very soon. This is a TS506. And, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's absolutely crazy about it. We got some micarta going on the handles here. It's dyed black, but it does look like it's kind of their micarta sort of stuff going on there. This is much more of a budget-oriented knife here. And we do have these kind of G10 inserts with little basketball or baseball kind of grooves going on in there. This is a David Chen knife. He's got a couple others that are coming up that also look a little interesting here. G10 backspacer with a lanyard loop out there. The blade can be touched up towards the top. Not really if you're dragging your hand along it, but I can get to it by using my fingernail getting in there. So, yeah, let's go ahead and pop the damn thing open here. We have blacking on a bit of the blade there, you know, the spine and the flats, but the whole grind and everything like that is a nice satin. We got a finger trowel there, maybe just a little bit small, but still fairly usable for me. And we do have this hole here. It's not. We have a detent that is tuned specifically for using the flipper tab. So good luck actually using that to open it up, unless you really alter the knife quite a bit. But yeah, here we go. This was one of the first knives produced from them using N690 blade steel. Let's see if we can't hear when I drag my hand across this guy here. It has a very specific sound to it. Yeah, it has a ring just moving that along there. For one, that means the knife is fairly thin in the geometry department, but also what I'm used to, it actually having quite a hard HRC on it, which is interesting. Stuff like D2 and stuff like that doesn't generally have that kind of ring, but I've experienced it with some other stuff with N690 blade steel, like some of the older Spy Opera models that Spyderco and whoever it was, Lion Steel or Viper, or one of those other Italian kind of collaboration sort of knives. Some of them will use N690, and I kind of got something similar out of there. So it seems like they're actually doing a decent heat treat on that stuff, which is great. Really like that. I've kind of turned my nose up at N690 in the past, but it's not bad. It kind of fits in between that 440C, 154cm kind of range. Probably, I would hold it just above VG10 or something like that. So still, it's a pretty good knife steel overall, especially for some more budget sort of stuff. But all right, here we go with the specs that make this knife absolutely hilarious. So we got a 2.93 inch blade. We can see it's quite tall. That's 74.4 millimeters. Yes. 3.7 millimeter blade stock thickness. 6.07 ounces or 172 grams. This guy is not lightweight, even though the handle or the steel liners are skeletonized. The handle width on this guy is 0.76 of an inch, or 19.3 millimeters. It's, absolutely hilarious. But, especially if you're using that finger choil, that really fills out the hand if you're going for that hammer grip, that gorilla grip, just forcing it through something. Ends up working out quite well. It doesn't work very well for a reverse grip for like a paring or doing any of those chest lever wood cutting kind of tasks. That's definitely not the knife for you, especially with the exaggerated flipper tab on top of all the rest of it. The action on it's not great, I'm not going to lie to you. Probably part of that is going to be the blade coating. But it's also a budget knife. They weren't really super crazy on making sure that everything was on the up and up as far as great action is concerned. And it's essentially a 3-finger knife for me. 3.5 maybe, but it curls up quite a bit. That if my pinky does make contact, it's way up there, so it's not really giving any power. But it's a full 4-finger if you do actually use that finger choil. Like I said, the cutting geometry and the blade steel on it seem to be pretty darn good. So if you're looking for a small knife that you're trying to actually do a lot of crazy work, maybe like that really small Mora knife. It starts with an I. I had it earlier in my head and I completely forgot about it. But that little tiny carving knife that actually has like a 4-inch handle on it or something like that, that's meant to be carried like a neck knife. Something like that. This thing can do some of that sort of stuff. But still, very budget kind of knife. But we do have nice access to the lock bar. Yeah, it's a wacky knife. All right, next up, we got the Miguron Centurion. They do now also have the Centurion 2, which is their high-end version, which I don't remember if it's using M390 or S90V. Either way, Miguron for their higher-end blade steels, not exactly the best heat treat for them, so you're not going to get maybe quite as much mileage out of their M390 or S90V than you would get out of something from like Spyderco or Riot or any of that sort of stuff. But here we go. This is Centurion here. We got a crazy amount of belly on there. This is I guess technically you could consider it a drop point, but it does not use like a drop point at all. But it has that tip that you can do a lot of skinning tasks and stuff like that for, I guess, if you want to look into that. This guy has 14C28N blade steel. We have basically a stonewash finish on the swedge and shoulders and all that sort of stuff, but we have a horizontal rub on the flat part of the blade there. This guy got a flipper tab there. Interesting with the notch there. I thought maybe the thumb studs would be in there. It was possible that they tried to initially creep this thing up there to have it snug in there or something. I don't know. That would have been kind of nice, because as it is, these thumb studs are fairly pronounced and do get in the way of the blade path a bit down at the bottom there. Decent ergonomics. This thing is not a thin knife, that's for sure. We do have nice access to the lock bar though. And, just like pretty much all the other Migurons, this thing has quite good action going on here. And we do have a titanium milled pocket clip for it. It may be a little bit stiff, but still fairly decently done. Inset by two screws into the G10. In this case, I got the gray. And this is much more of a neutral gray rather than what a lot of companies will call gray that ends up looking like a funky blue. Some companies will call this like a slate gray or something like that because of that. But yeah, it ends up working out all right. It seems like you would need a bit more traction on the thumb studs than the couple of little horizontal knurlings that are there. But I don't have any problems with it. It doesn't feel slippery or anything. So yeah, this is a pretty interesting little knife. 14C28N on it seems to be all right. I have had one Miguron knife in 14C that its heat treat didn't feel all that great, but luckily that was only one, and all the rest of them have been great, including this one here. So specs wise, we got 3.34 inches or 84.9 for millimeters for the blade length. 3.6 millimeter blade stock thickness on it, which is a bit on the thicker side, and it kind of makes sense. This is designed to be a little bit more of a tank than it is a slicing machine. We got 4.58 ounces or 130 grams. That kind of makes sense. And 0.58 inch thick handle scales here, or 14.7 millimeters. They are quite nicely contoured though. They're not just flat. So that's good. And something I haven't seen for a little bit here is we do have these little scallops for your finger landing pad after you use a little flipper tab action on it. Not something that's really necessary in this knife or most others, but hey, it's still kind of nice to see it when you do see it. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't really have any interest in the higher end version of this, because already this is kind of an interesting knife, but not something that I would probably use on a normal basis. So already the last one that I have here, and I'm going to split them up a little bit. So I'll have another one at the beginning of the next one here. We have this guy that a lot of people, myself included, were kind of interested in. This is the Civivi Vision FG, or the Civivi version of the Vision. I think the Wii was the Vision R, if I remember right. Yeah. Either way, this is a weird knife. It's using the SNEX lock back here. It's done a little tiny bit different than it has been on some other knives here. It is interesting that we have this little hole here to actually see how it works, and when it's in there, you can see basically how the lock interfaces with the blade tang and everything. Kind of shows you a bit how it ends up working. It has an interesting sound to it. Much more of a what I would consider to be a click than a a clack or something like that. It sounds much more higher pitch than I end up getting with a lot of them. Almost sounds like you're breaking a dry stick or something like that. Yeah. Excuse me. So the one that I have here is a nitro-v blade steel. I'm sure it's printed on here, but Civivi's gotten so good at either hiding it or recently just not printing it on there. I don't like that for people looking for models later on where they have no idea what was actually used with it. So I hope that they continue to actually put that information on here. Yeah, on this one you can just barely see it in there, but there's been a couple of them that they've just completely omitted it. I got mine in the green micarta. The only option for that was to have a coating on the blade, because that's apparently what Civivi believes is if you want green micarta, you want all black hardware. Not necessarily what I want, but apparently that's what ends up sells the most for them. So that ends up happening. We got speed holes, 3 of them. They go through the micarta and the liners. That also acts as the weight relieving, since there's nothing else going on that. And we have a bit of a different sort of thing going on with the pocket clip. It's, for the most part, the same Civivi pocket clip that they use on a lot of stuff here. But you can, it does angle a bit, rather than the Vision R that was actually spine mounted, which was, some people liked it, most people hated it. So I guess it's an improvement there. And you can swap it over to the other side. Looks like I got some other schmutz on my card on this. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. What I can say is that I haven't really been a huge fan of Civivi pocket clips, and this one actually bent out of shape from me literally just sitting in the bucket seat on the passenger side of a Camaro. A newer one, not like a 60s one or something like that. And that was enough to tweak it. So, yeah, these pocket clips are not designed to survive you snagging it on anything or putting any sorts of pressure that it's not exactly looking for. Something that I've been kind of annoyed with in general. Civivi does sell kind of a titanium replacement pocket clip. However, it wouldn't work with this one because it's it's inset in there, so it puts so much pressure on that little titanium point there once you have it screwed in that you can never get anything clipped in or out. So not really a viable option for replacing these guys here. So yeah, that's something that's kind of annoying with it. I do like the finger choil on it though. It is nice and lets you get way up there. It's still feeling decently safe with it, so that's good. We got kind of that modified sheep's foot / Higo no Kami, or not Higo no Kami, Kiridashi, kind of a utility blade that kind of points upward, but also almost maybe a reverse Tonto kind of looking sort of thing going on there. It's interesting. It's not bad. I wouldn't mind having some jimping. I wouldn't mind having some crazy jimping, like what Azo's done on a couple of Kaisers. Were done jimping on like maybe half or so of the spine of the blade, because that does feel a bit slick. And trying to keep your thumb on that Snex lock, that is not comfortable where it's placed. But how it is, if I'm not using that finger choil, that lock still is there, basically right on the knuckle, so it's not comfortable for me. So yeah, overall, I'm sure a lot of people really like this knife. It's a lot of fun to play with, but it's not really going to get a whole lot more pocket time out of me. I've played around with it, I've done some cutting with it, I've sharpened it, and all that sort of stuff, but yeah, this one's just not for me. So alrighty, there's everything that we ended up covering today. We got the SixLeaf SL-26. Let's see, and then we got the TwoSun TS412 from Jelly Jerry. We got the TwoSun 506 from David Chin. We got the Miguron Centurion and the Civivi Vision FG here. Not bad knives, all of them, but I think this one I absolutely enjoy and love using, and the rest of them are okay, but maybe have better replacements or differing sorts out there. But alrighty, as always, I appreciate y'all for watching, and have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo.